Have you ever made a man cry because of you? Not because you hurt him, not because you broke his heart, but because something deep inside him simply refused to let him rest. He couldn't explain it. He didn't even have the words. All he knew was that thoughts of you kept pulling him back. And no, it isn't what most people assume. It's not about saying the perfect thing or trying to impress him in the bedroom. This goes much deeper than that. It begins with one quiet moment when you stop being just another woman he enjoys talking to and become the one he can't seem to forget. Think about that for a second. Men receive attention every day. They get compliments, they get playful messages, they even get admiration from people around them. But how often does a man feel completely understood? There is one simple gesture that reaches the hidden part of him, the part he rarely shows anyone. When you do this naturally, without forcing it, you slip past the walls he has built for years. And once that happens, he finds himself lying awake at night, replaying that moment over and over without knowing why. Stay with me, because I'm about to reveal what creates that kind of emotional connection and how you can do it without pretending to be someone you're not. Before I explain it, picture this in your mind. He's stretched out in bed with his phone still glowing in his hand. He scrolls back through your last conversation again and again, trying to understand why it affected him so much. If you've ever wanted to become unforgettable instead of always chasing someone's attention, keep watching carefully, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you see attraction. And before we continue, I want to ask you something. If you feel comfortable, tell me below. Have you ever experienced that one unforgettable moment when a man looked at you as if nobody else existed? What did that feel like? Hold on to that memory, because what comes next may explain it in a way you've never considered before. She didn't simply brush against his hand. She reached a place inside him that had been silent for years, a place even he didn't know was waiting for someone to notice it. Let that thought settle for a moment. Really let it stay with you, because today we're looking at attraction from a completely different angle. Have you ever wondered why some women who don't fit the usual beauty standards, who rarely post perfect pictures online, who don't live glamorous lives filled with luxury, still become the women certain men can never forget? Out of all the faces he sees and all the people he meets, why does one woman continue to stay in his thoughts? Listen closely, because the answer has very little to do with appearance. It isn't about perfect makeup. It isn't about copying confident poses from social media. It isn't about trying to act mysterious. The truth is much quieter than that. It comes from something deeper, something timeless that exists beneath the surface. It is the quiet strength of genuine presence. It's the rare ability to make another person feel completely accepted without trying to control them. Most people rush to speak. They rush to impress. They rush to prove their worth. But the woman who leaves a lasting mark often does the opposite. She pays attention. She notices what others miss. She creates a space where someone finally feels safe enough to stop pretending. That's the kind of experience people remember for years. And here's the surprising part. Most men never expect to feel that way. So when it finally happens, it stays with them much longer than they ever imagined. Keep listening, because we're only getting started, and what comes next may completely change how you think about emotional connection forever. Before we go any further, take one small moment to press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and do it for yourself, not for me. Because what you're about to discover isn't just another piece of dating advice. It's a completely different way of understanding love, emotional connection, and the quiet strength you already carry within you. Now imagine this. You're standing inside a busy train station. People rush in every direction. Their eyes stay fixed on their phones. The atmosphere feels noisy, distracted, and restless. Then one woman quietly walks in. She isn't smiling for attention. She isn't wearing anything dramatic. She simply carries herself with calm confidence. Her eyes don't search for approval. They genuinely notice the people around her. She doesn't force conversations. She doesn't compete for attention. Yet something changes. Heads slowly turn. The mood in the room feels different. It almost seems as if the energy itself has shifted. That isn't luck. It isn't a performance. It's the quiet influence of someone who feels secure within herself. Not because she's perfect, but because she's deeply grounded. Men notice that, even when they can't explain why. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right? You were kind. You looked your best. You replied quickly. You smiled at the right moments, you gave your attention freely, yet somehow you still felt invisible to the man you wanted, as if there was a hidden door everyone else could find except you. Stay with me, because the answer may surprise you. The truth is, you were never missing something, you were simply taught to focus on the wrong things. Many people learn how to attract attention, but very few learn how to create emotional safety, and that difference changes everything. Keep watching, because what comes next may completely reshape the way you think about attraction. You were taught to impress the eyes, but lasting connection is created in the mind and heart. Real feminine strength doesn't beg to be noticed. It quietly creates a feeling that stays long after the conversation ends. It makes a man feel as though he has stepped into something familiar yet completely unexpected. Most women are told to chase attention. The unforgettable ones never have to. They naturally attract it. Not because they speak louder, not because they reveal more about themselves right away, but because they leave space for curiosity while remaining deeply genuine. They connect with the part of him that almost nobody ever sees, the part that's tired of pretending everything is fine, the part that quietly carries pressure, fear, hope, and dreams without saying a word. When someone truly recognizes that side of him without trying to fix or control it, something changes. That experience doesn't fade easily. It becomes a memory he returns to again and again. A man may meet many people throughout his life, but emotional peace is much harder to find. The woman who brings that feeling often becomes impossible to forget. If you've ever wondered how to become the woman he remembers when he's sitting alone with his thoughts, the one he naturally compares others to without realizing it, stay with me until the end. This isn't about playing games. It isn't about manipulation or clever tricks. It's about becoming emotionally steady, quietly confident, and genuinely present in a way that speaks louder than words. Your presence alone begins to reach places conversations never could. This isn't about touching his hand. It's about touching the way he experiences himself. And once that happens, love stops feeling like something you have to chase. It starts moving toward you instead. Now let's go deeper, because the next idea is where everything begins to change. Most men don't fall because of simple physical touch. They fall because of emotional tension, the quiet energy that exists before anything actually happens. Attraction doesn't suddenly appear the moment your hands meet. It often begins much earlier, in that silent instant when he realizes he wants to be closer but doesn't know if he can. That's the detail many people overlook. They think attraction is created by getting closer as quickly as possible, but true connection often grows inside the space between two people. It lives inside anticipation. Picture this. You're sitting inside a softly lit theater. Gentle music fills the room. Two characters slowly move toward each other on stage. Their hands come close, their fingers almost meet, but they stop just before they touch. The audience leans forward without even realizing it. Hearts beat faster, eyes refuse to blink. Why? Because the moment hasn't happened yet, it's still waiting. And inside that waiting lies the strongest emotional energy. So many people rush to close every gap. They hurry toward the kiss. They hurry toward constant texting. They hurry to ask where the relationship is going before it has time to breathe. They measure success by immediate answers instead of growing connection. But lasting attraction isn't built on certainty alone. It's built on curiosity, emotional space, and the quiet excitement of discovering someone one step at a time. A man rarely gives his deepest feelings to what feels completely predictable. He responds to the gentle pull that invites him forward naturally. The harder you try to force an outcome by explaining everything too soon, reaching out constantly, or asking for reassurance after every meeting, the more you accidentally remove the mystery that keeps emotional connection alive. And I understand why people do it. We all want clarity. We all want certainty. But sometimes the strongest bonds are created when you allow the story enough room to unfold on its own. Keep watching, because the next part reveals why that simple shift changes everything. You want peace of mind. You want to know where you stand. You're tired of mixed signals, tired of holding back your feelings, tired of wondering whether he feels the same way you do. So you move closer too quickly. You give more than you should, believing that more closeness automatically creates a stronger connection. But that isn't always true. Sometimes the opposite happens. When you rush the moment, you take away the quiet power it could have carried. When you demand certainty too early, you leave no room for curiosity. And when you hold on too tightly, you may not notice that he was already beginning to move toward you. You simply arrived before he had the chance. That's where many people lose something valuable without realizing it. Real emotional connection can't be forced, it has to grow naturally. Often the strongest feelings appear when someone is allowed to discover them on their own. If every emotion is explained before it has time to develop, the experience becomes smaller instead of deeper. Here's something many of us were never taught. A man doesn't build lasting feelings because someone constantly reaches for him. He builds them when he reaches forward himself and finds someone calm, steady, and emotionally secure. That quiet confidence stays with him far longer than constant reassurance ever could. Stay with me, because the next idea may completely change the way you understand attraction. Sometimes the greatest influence comes not from what you do, but from what you allow to unfold without rushing. That's where emotional connection quietly begins, and once you understand that, everything starts to make much more sense. There is something deeply attractive about a woman who doesn't feel the need to prove her worth every minute. She carries herself with quiet confidence. She stays calm during silence instead of trying to fill every pause with words. She allows conversations to breathe instead of rushing to fix every uncertain moment. That kind of presence leaves a lasting impression. Anyone can offer attention for a few minutes, but very few people create a feeling that stays long after they leave the room. The next time you find yourself wanting instant closeness, pause for a moment instead. Let him wonder about you. Let him take a step forward. Let him notice your absence once in a while, because people naturally value what they have the chance to seek. You don't have to reach across the table or constantly search for reassurance. Sometimes your calm presence says more than endless conversation ever could. That's where quiet strength lives. So if you've ever believed you were either too much or somehow never enough, if you've ever given everything only to feel emotionally exhausted, listen carefully. You don't become unforgettable by constantly trying harder. You become memorable by knowing when to pause, when to breathe, and when to let silence carry its own message. Often the strongest feelings aren't created when someone finally holds your hand. They begin much earlier, in the moment they quietly wonder if that day will ever come. And that's only the beginning. Stay with me, because the next part goes even deeper. We're moving beyond physical attraction and into something far more lasting. Once you learn how to create a connection inside someone's thoughts, your presence continues long after you've walked away. Real closeness always begins in the mind before it reaches anywhere else. Physical moments may fade with time, but meaningful experiences continue to live inside memory. If your only goal is temporary attention, being direct may be enough. But if you want someone to remember you long after the conversation ends, you leave them with a feeling they can't easily explain. That's the difference most people never fully understand. A man's eyes notice what's directly in front of him, but his mind creates the stories that stay with him. That's where emotional connection quietly grows. Not through endless explanations, but through moments that invite curiosity and imagination. Think about walking past a bakery early in the morning. The warm smell of fresh cinnamon, butter, and vanilla reaches you before you even see the cakes. Suddenly you begin imagining the taste without taking a single bite. Your mind fills in the rest all by itself. Human connection often works the same way. You don't have to explain every feeling in detail. Sometimes offering a small glimpse is enough for imagination to do the rest. Instead of saying something completely predictable like, "I miss you," you might say, "If you were here right now, we'd probably end up laughing over something we shouldn't." Notice the difference. One sentence simply delivers information, the other creates a picture. It opens a scene instead of closing it, and scenes stay in people's minds much longer than simple statements. They replay them, they imagine the details, they return to that moment again and again without even realizing why. Keep watching, because the next insight reveals why those quiet mental pictures often create stronger emotional connections than words alone ever can. He finds himself thinking about you while driving to work, sitting through meetings, or lying awake long after the lights are off, quietly asking himself, "Why do I keep thinking about her?" The answer is often much simpler than people expect. The human mind remembers feelings far longer than it remembers facts. That's why you don't always need long explanations or dramatic speeches. Say a little, but let your words carry meaning. Let your actions leave space for curiosity instead of answering every question immediately. When you do that, you stop being just another person he happened to meet. You become an experience that stays with him, and experiences leave deeper marks than ordinary conversations ever could. Stay with me because we're about to uncover another quiet strength that many people completely overlook. It isn't louder, it isn't more dramatic. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It is the calm presence that quietly stays in someone's thoughts long after you've gone. In a world where everyone competes for attention, the person who feels comfortable without demanding it naturally becomes unforgettable. That's the kind of influence that can't be copied because it comes from genuine confidence instead of performance. Keep watching because the next idea may completely change how you see attraction and emotional connection. Think about the world around you for a moment. Everywhere people are chasing reactions. They want likes, approval, compliments, and constant attention. Everyone is trying to be noticed. Yet in the middle of all that noise, the woman who has nothing to prove quietly stands apart. Most people believe connection comes from doing more, talking more, laughing louder, trying harder, pleasing everyone around them. But lasting presence often grows from something much quieter. Imagine walking into a crowded room. Conversations overlap. People compete to tell the funniest story. Music plays. Everyone seems busy trying to impress someone else. Then you notice one woman standing calmly with complete ease. She isn't trying to dominate the room. She isn't searching for attention. She simply enjoys the moment. Somehow, people begin wondering about her without knowing exactly why. That is the quiet power of presence. It doesn't ask to be noticed. It naturally invites curiosity. Many people mistake stillness for weakness. But the opposite is often true. Calmness can be one of the strongest forms of confidence. It quietly says, I don't need to chase. I don't need to convince anyone of my worth. That kind of emotional balance is rare, and because it's rare, people remember it. Men often notice the difference between someone who constantly seeks validation and someone who already feels secure within herself. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, fill every silence, or keep talking simply because the room feels quiet, try something different. Let the pause remain for another second. Smile, stay relaxed, allow the silence to breathe. You may be surprised by how much more powerful that moment becomes. Stay with me, because what comes next takes this idea even further. Now let's talk about something surprisingly powerful, the quiet pull of the almost. Sometimes the moments people remember most are the ones that never completely happened. Think about the almost kiss, the almost confession, the almost touch. These moments stay alive because they leave the story unfinished. They give the imagination room to continue writing long after the moment is over. And the human mind naturally returns to unfinished stories. Picture yourself watching a movie. Two people slowly move toward each other. The music builds, every emotion rises. They're just about to kiss. Then, without warning, the screen fades to black. Suddenly you're left wondering what happened next. Your imagination immediately fills the empty space. That's exactly why open endings stay with us. The mind enjoys exploring what hasn't been answered yet. Human attraction often works the same way. When every moment is completely explained, curiosity fades. But when there's just enough left unsaid, the connection continues growing inside memory. Instead of rushing every emotional moment forward, allow it to breathe. If you're sharing a meaningful moment and the energy feels strong, you don't always have to push it further. You could simply smile, step back for a second, and softly say, that was closer than either of us expected. Then let the moment rest. No long explanation, no pressure, no need to force what comes next. You've created a memory instead of simply completing an action. That quiet pause becomes something he replays later, wondering what might happen the next time. When everything is given away immediately, there's very little left to imagine. But when you leave just enough mystery behind, the story keeps unfolding inside his mind long after you've gone. And trust me, we're only getting started, because the next insight reveals why emotional anticipation often becomes even more powerful than the moment itself. That unfinished moment is often what stays alive the longest. The feeling of almost keeps the heart curious, because lasting desire rarely comes from getting everything at once. It grows from wondering what could happen next. Never underestimate the power of an incomplete moment. It lingers, it reaches deeper, it echoes through memory long after everything else has faded. And now we're moving into something even more meaningful. We're not only talking about keeping his attention, we're talking about making him feel truly understood, not simply praised, not copied, but deeply inspired in a way very few people ever experience. Stay with me because this next idea could completely change the way you see emotional attraction. A man doesn't simply fall for the woman who reflects the person he already believes he is. He is often drawn toward the woman who quietly helps him see the person he could become. That's the difference between temporary attraction and lasting influence. It's the difference between being noticed for a moment and becoming someone he remembers for years. Many people try to build closeness by repeating what someone already knows about themselves. They compliment his confidence, they admire his achievements, they celebrate every success. Of course that feels good for a while, but what happens when life becomes difficult? What happens when confidence disappears for a season? What happens when the polished image begins to crack? That's when real connection finally reveals itself. Keep watching, because the next part goes much deeper than simple compliments ever could. Think about the difference between reflecting someone's image and awakening their potential. A mirror only shows what already exists, but someone who truly sees you notices possibilities you haven't fully discovered yourself. Imagine a man who has spent years building his identity around success, reputation, and appearance. Everyone around him praises that polished version because it's easy to admire. Then one evening he sits across from a woman who quietly says, "I know you're capable of great things, but I also feel there's a part of you that's been carrying more than anyone realizes." She isn't judging him, she isn't trying to fix him, she's simply recognizing something deeper than the surface. In that moment, she isn't speaking to his reputation, she's speaking to his future. That kind of conversation stays with people because it reaches beyond compliments and touches hope. People rarely forget someone who believes in a version of them they secretly want to become. So don't limit yourself to praising what everyone else already sees. Notice the qualities still growing beneath the surface. Speak to his courage when he doubts himself. Notice his kindness when nobody else mentions it. Recognize his character before his accomplishments. Those words carry a different kind of weight because they encourage growth instead of feeding pride. The people we remember most are often the ones who helped us become better versions of ourselves. Stay with me because the next insight is just as important. Before lasting attraction can grow, something even more essential has to come first. Real connection always stands on a foundation of respect. Attraction by itself can be exciting, but excitement alone doesn't build something that lasts. We've all seen relationships filled with chemistry that disappeared almost as quickly as they began. Why? Because desire without respect eventually fades. Respect gives attraction somewhere solid to grow. It creates safety, it creates trust, it creates consistency. Many people spend their energy trying to become more desirable, hoping to be noticed, chased, or constantly pursued. But being wanted isn't the same as being truly valued. Temporary desire reacts to appearances and emotions. Genuine respect responds to character. It makes someone slow down. It encourages honest conversations. It inspires better behavior. And here's something worth remembering. Respect isn't created by perfection or endless effort. It's created through consistency, healthy boundaries, quiet confidence, and actions that match your words. Imagine meeting someone who is used to receiving endless attention from people trying to impress him. Then he meets you. You don't rush every reply. You don't reshape your personality just to fit his expectations. You don't compete for his approval. Instead, you stay true to yourself while treating him with kindness and honesty. That difference stands out because confidence doesn't need to announce itself. People naturally respect someone who already respects themselves. Men rarely remember the loudest voice in the room. They remember the person who carried quiet confidence without asking for permission. If you've ever wondered why someone keeps thinking about the woman who wasn't trying the hardest to impress him, this is often the reason. She acted from self-respect instead of fear. She understood her own value without needing constant proof from someone else. And that's where lasting attraction truly begins, because respect creates the space where deeper feelings can continue to grow instead of quickly fading away. Now we're stepping into a different kind of communication, the kind that quietly reaches beneath the surface. This is where words don't simply sound nice. They stay in his mind long after the conversation ends. Learn to speak through images instead of endless explanations. The heart rarely connects with lists of facts. It connects with moments it can picture. If you truly want to become unforgettable, don't only say things that make sense.